Chris, tell me about Christopher Skoltis.
All right, so we're going to say Skoltis, and my apologies if anybody has the same name and I'm mispronouncing it. Don't mean to do that. Christopher Skoltis admitted that he had a lot of bad habits, that he was an addict who drove at high speeds with his 3 daughters in the car after he'd been drinking, and that he let them nap inside the vehicle on blistering hot days while he played video games and watched pornography,
Great guy.
according to court records. In a text message he exchanged with his wife, Erica, she admitted to all these practices in the months leading up to their 2-year-old daughter's death. Parker was the only child in Skoltis' care for most of the morning on July 9th, as his 2 other daughters, 9 and 5 years old, had been taken to a trampoline park by a neighbor. Skoltis had been trying to schedule a doctor's appointment and decided to drive down to their office with Parker since he was having trouble reaching the doctor by phone. Investigation documents mentioning this. On his way back home from the office, he stopped at a gas station and a grocery store.
Okay.
Security footage shows that Skoltis at a convenience store on West Twin Peaks Road from 12:07 p.m. to 12:10 p.m., July 9th, where he walked to the beer cooler, grabbed 3 cans of beer, spent a couple of minutes in the restroom, exiting with fewer cans than he went in with.
Odd.
He left the store without paying for them. It's unknown if he consumed any beer in the bathroom.
He did something with it, or at least left it there.
Skoltis then drove to a grocery store in North Thorndale Road, where cameras showed him entering alone at 12:40 p.m. He spent 7 minutes in the store before he went to self-checkout to pay for 2 jars of salsa, tortillas, tortilla chips, and iceberg lettuce. He's making some burritos and nachos, Joe.
Without any meat or cheese.
The video shows him shoplifting 2 more cans of beer.
Okay.
Finally, he pulled into their home's driveway at 12:53 p.m. Skoltis surfed the internet for men's clothing at Nordstrom and for pornography from 2:02 p.m. until 2:30 p.m. That's 28 minutes. No indication of how much was spent at Nordstrom's and how much was spent.
I gotcha. Yeah, okay.
Probably like 23 minutes on the Nordstrom site.
Yeah. Anyways.
Parker was finally brought out of the vehicle about 4 p.m.
That's his
2-year-old daughter, who was in the car while he was inside.
And it was 109 degrees on this day?
Yes. The wife, Erica, a doctor at Banner University Medical Center, came home from work and asked her husband about their daughter. He went, uh-oh, and frantically ran to the car, brought her into the house, attempted to revive her. He was arrested on July 12th. The judge in that case released him with no bond and allowed him to be home and have contact with his children as long as he's supervised. So why would we tell you a story about a deadbeat dad who left his daughter in a hot car and she died? We have hot car deaths tragically every single year, which incidentally, I don't know about you, Joe, but my car will tell me if I have something in the back seat.
Okay.
I've got a little thing on there, which is super annoying if you don't have kids. So it takes a few steps, but I'm able to disable it. But I have one of those, is there a child in the back seat situation things, or do you have a pet in the back seat? So newer cars are coming with these alerts, which I think is a great thing. But we have these stories all the time. Why would I bring this up?
This one's a little bit different. So Skoltis was granted court approval to travel to Hawaii for a family vacation that just wrapped up this past week. He got approval from a judge to travel to Maui from May 1st to May 9th with his wife and their 2 daughters, stating that they plan to stay with friends of the couple.
Whoa!
Yeah.
All right. So the guy's been charged with first-degree murder, child abuse.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a neglect in there, too? Oh, domestic violence as well. So he's got a murder 1 charge, class 1 felony. He's got a child abuse charge, class 2 felony. He's got the domestic abuse charge as well. He was sent home without bond. That struck me as odd.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a court lawyer, you know, but that does seem weird to me.
A little bit. So a Pima County judge granted Skoltis permission to travel outside of Arizona for a family vacation. Court documents said, quote, the court finds good cause to grant the defendant's request to travel.
So the guy is out on bond, which he didn't have to pay for in the first place. She let him out, released him with no bond on a murder 1 charge, which seems really weird to me.
Yeah, so accused of killing his 2-year-old daughter in the back of his car
And I told you a little bit more about the history to begin with, that he has a long history of ignoring things, drinking, obviously shoplifting here, stealing beers, so he could drink and drive with his daughter in the car.
Really gave you the Cliff's Notes version of this story. There are numerous instances where he's been accused of allowing the kids to sleep in the back of the car
while he's driving 139 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, who are you? An elected state representative?
There were some drug issues. Well played.
Took you a second, but you got it.
There were numerous drug issues where he mentioned that, hey, at least he was replacing his drug addiction with beer because that's legal.
It's not cocaine, honey. It's beer. That's got to be better, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
And the wife knew all of this stuff was going on. And she's a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is in her past that has her with this deadbeat who's got all these addiction problems. And I know they've got kids, and she's going to probably sticking with him because of the kids and blah, blah, blah. This is a mistake lots of people make. But, yeah, we gave you the Cliff Notes versions on this guy's history. The judge says, well, yeah, but, we get that it's a murder one charge, but you can just go home. Sleep it off.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be able to get to your daughter's funeral.
Well, and hey, I mean, why not let you go to Maui before you might not get to be with your family for a while?
So something else in there, too. This whole thing happened in July last year around Marana, right? Pima County.
Yeah.
So this goes on July last year. When was this trip to Maui planned? They planned a trip to Maui while he was out on bond, what they call a PR bond, personal recognizance bond. He's out on a PR bond. They decide to plan a trip to Hawaii while he's out on bond for the murder of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
The wife and other two kids say, we're going on a couple's trip, honey, before you go away for 25 to life. My mind is blown on all of this. I mean, just absolutely spinning right now that this could happen.
Chris, he's not scheduled to go back to court until middle of August. There's plenty of time for another trip.
He does have a pre-sentencing interview, or a pre-trial interview that he has to do on May 10th. Excuse me. He has to be back for that. I do know that.
Well, May 10th was 2 days ago. So that was
right,
just...
but the trip was May 1st through the 9th.
Yes.
So that was even longer ago,
So
Joe. You're bad at this.
No, I'm not bad at this.
He's back from Hawaii.
Yes, he is. So, and all he had to do, I believe, was contact his defense counsel and pretrial services.
Yeah.
Let them know, hey, I'm back. I'm not in Hawaii anymore.
And even the prosecution said, well, listen, if you're going to let him out to go to Hawaii, at the very least, he should surrender his passport so he can't just skip to another country. And the judge said, nah, he's probably good.
No.
Joining us right now is our KTAR legal analyst, Barry Markson. Barry, this one seems really odd to me. How common is it to have a no bond, a personal recognizance bond on a murder one charge? That seems very bizarre. And if this had been a Gilbert Goon, you better believe we would have been throwing all kinds of grief about it.
Yeah, it's not common at all in a first-degree murder charge to let someone, certainly it's not automatic, would they be allowed to take a vacation or an out-of-state or out-of-the-country trip. It's not unheard of, and it's the judge's discretion, but it's certainly unusual.
How common is it for a family to plan a vacation while somebody's out on bond? Have you seen that before? I mean, it's not like this was a pre-planned thing. It's not like this was a surprise. They said, well, our friends are going. And that seems like really bizarre behavior.
Yeah, it seems like you like this. Look, I'm amazed the wife is still with him. I agree with you, Chris. My wife, there's no way we'd still be together if God forbid I had done something like that. Of course, she's always looking for a reason to get out, but that would have done it for sure.
Yeah,
it's odd having the whole big. Look, I get it. Maybe from their perspective is the father could be going away for a long time. This could be one of the last vacations they get as a family. They're trying to create some memories with their other daughters. They have two other kids, is my understanding. But it seems odd. But I'll tell you, from the court's perspective, the judge is worried about whether or not the defendant is going to appear at trial. And apparently, the judge found that he didn't find this guy to be a flight risk. He's obviously going with his family. His wife is there. They expect he'd come back. They don't think it's going to be an issue. And as far as we know, he did come back. So that's the biggest issue the judge is worried about here. Is number one, is he a risk to anyone else, whether in the family or someone in public? And two, to make sure he shows up for trial.
He's only at risk.
Those are the two main conditions.
Barry, you're only at risk if you're in the back of his car.
Well, I was just thinking Hawaii's pretty hot. Maybe the kids don't want to go get ice cream with him.
Yeah.
Well, they did put some limitations on it. He could not be alone with the kids. and some other things. But it's odd. There's no question about it. This is very odd.
Well, we've all got limitations, though. Like, you're not supposed to drive drunk at 140 miles an hour with kids in the back seat, but he still did that anyway.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Joe.
Not this time. That's not what he's up for trial for this time.
Right,
but
right.
KTAR.
It is bad.
Sorry, Barry. Wrap up there. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say it's interesting here, though. I actually give the prosecutors in Pima County some credit that they're charging this guy with first-degree murder. I mean, we've seen cases before where people leave kids in the back of the car; they're barely charged. We've seen cases before where kids die in swimming pools in the backyard, and it's awful. It's an awful, sad thing. Don't get me wrong, but they don't charge the parents. So I'm actually somewhat surprised, and I think it's a good thing that parents are being held accountable for actions they take that harm their children.
Barry, when I was reading over this story on Friday and into the weekend, I'm really ticked at the judge in this case who lets this guy travel with his family to Hawaii for a week. He's made all kinds of poor decisions that Chris and I have brought up here in his life leading up to this. I expect this guy to be a bonehead, but I expect better from a judge. And I know you said that it seems strange to you, but if you're the prosecutor and you're objecting, what goes into a judge's head that says, yeah, we think he'll come back. We'll let him go.
I think that's the biggest thing for the judge is number one, what's the likelihood of flight? Is the person going to leave and not return and not come in for trial?
What if he didn't come back?
Well, then the judge would look especially pretty bad. I mean, that's the risk. But if the judge says, look, he's going with his family, his wife has been supportive of him and keeping the family together, I don't see the risk that he's not going to return. Then that's number one. And number two, what kind of a risk is he, whether to someone in the family or to someone in the public? And they're not seeing that either. And you already seen that and pointed out that there was no bail. He was just allowed to be released on his own recognizance. So the judge is apparently looking at this more as this is an awful thing that happened. It could be this guy's fault, and we'll go through with the trial. But they're not viewing him as they would somebody who walked down the street and murdered someone in cold blood.
Barry Markson is our KTAR legal analyst. Let's get into the I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but a little bit more on the legal wrangling that goes on with this. So he was charged with murder 2 to start with. They upped that to murder 1, as well as this domestic violence and then the child abuse to go with that. He turned down a plea deal that would have meant 10 to 25 for murder 2. The prosecution hasn't come back with a different offer. They must feel pretty confident. As you said, though, to give a murder 1 charge on this, sometimes we see him charged with like negligent manslaughter or something, right? And in this case, they're going for murder 1. He rejected the plea deal, and they didn't even come back with something else. Does that give us any indication of what might be going on?
It definitely does. Again, the murder 1 is a lot for a case like this, and I applaud prosecutors who hold people responsible for their actions.
Right.
I say the same thing when there's a gun death in a home, and it's parents leave the gun out and let so kids have access to it, and something happens. I think those parents should be punished.
Yeah.
And you have a right to own a gun. You don't have a right to leave it out and let your kids be killed. So, but that said, it seems odd here for it to be a murder 1 charge because that requires intent, and I don't know. That's a very high hurdle for prosecutors to be able to prove here, as opposed to murder 2 or manslaughter. So we'll see what happens there. We could see the prosecutors come back with a different offer, but my guess is that this guy thinks he's going to be able to persuade a jury that this was an accident, that it was negligence, that it didn't rise to the level of murder, and he's willing to roll the dice on that.
Barry, what does intent look like in a case like this? I understand intent in general, but can you as a prosecutor show intent if somebody commits the same distracted, negligent behavior over and over and over? What would be required to show intent in a case like this?
Yeah, normally it could be. It's a good question, Joe. It'd be normally be something where somebody says I'm going to kill that guy, or they've said something or done something in the past that shows that. Here, I don't think you have that, but the prosecutors will absolutely be showing that it's happened before, that he's aware of the risks, that the wife was aware of this, and I'm guessing he's been told how dangerous this can be. That really anybody should know, as you said, that if you leave your kid out in the car in summer in Arizona, that's you risk that kid passing away. So I think that's the claim here, that this was something that is so obviously dangerous that to do that implies that you have the necessary intent for a murder 1 charge.
An Arizona father charged in the death of his 2-year-old daughter, given permission to travel to Hawaii. Barry Markson, our KTAR legal analyst, walking through what he's going to face when he ends up in the courtroom here in a couple months. Thanks so much, Barry.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.